The first thing humanity did after joining the Galactic Council was embarrass itself. Not with war. Not with politics. Not even with one of those classic human moments where someone says, "Don't worry, I've got this," and then immediately sets something on fire. Humanity embarrassed itself with chairs. The Council Hall of Vera Prime had been built for elegance, diplomacy, and species with very long legs. Every seat in the grand circular chamber looked like a floating silver throne, perfectly shaped for tall alien bodies with backward knees and 3 spinal joints. Humans, sadly, had only 1 normal spine, 2 normal knees, and a deep emotional need to complain about uncomfortable furniture. So when Ambassador Mara Vale sat down for humanity's first official council meeting, the chair adjusted itself to what it believed was a comfortable human posture. It folded her like a pocket knife. The entire chamber went silent. Mara stared straight ahead, knees near her ears, diplomatic smile frozen on her face. Beside her, Captain Eli Rowan whispered, "Do we declare war on the chair?" Mara whispered back, "Not yet. I want to see if it apologizes." The chair softly chimed. Then it said, in perfect galactic standard, "Your body design is inefficient." That was humanity's first official insult from alien technology. And somehow, it became the most replayed clip in the galaxy for 3 weeks. Humanity had expected many things when it reached the stars. Fear, wonder, danger, maybe even glory. What it had not expected was to become the Council's newest comedy subject. To the old civilizations, humans were strange little creatures from a blue death world. Too emotional, too loud, too stubborn, too soft-skinned, too willing to taste unknown food, too quick to name dangerous animals things like Fluffy or Mr. Bitey. The Council species had watched humanity carefully before allowing them membership. They had studied human history, human wars, human art, human music, and one deeply confusing file labeled Internet Memes. After that, half the Council voted to delay human membership for another century. The other half voted yes because they were too curious to see what would happen. So humanity entered the galaxy not as conquerors, not as legends, but as the weird new neighbor everyone watched through the window. Ambassador Mara Vale knew this. She also knew humanity had no real power yet. Their ships were small. Their colonies were young. Their weapons were average at best. Their economy was still trying to understand why 1 cup of alien coffee cost more than a moon tractor. But humanity had one thing most old species had forgotten: adaptation. Humans were not the strongest. They were not the fastest. They were not the smartest in every field. But put a human in a bad situation, give them duct tape, panic, and exactly 3 minutes, and somehow they would build a solution that made engineers cry. Sometimes from joy. Mostly from fear. That was why Captain Eli Rowan had been chosen to lead the human security delegation on Vera Prime. He was calm under pressure, loyal to the bone, and had once repaired a damaged shuttle engine using a soup can, copper wire, and what he claimed was angry motivation. The alien engineers had called it impossible. Eli called it Tuesday. Across the council chamber, hundreds of alien delegates floated, perched, coiled, or stood inside personal atmosphere fields. Their voices echoed through translation rings above the room. Discussions moved slowly, carefully, and with the kind of boring politeness that made humans want to invent a crisis just to stay awake. Mara listened carefully. Trade routes, mining rights, border complaints. A 3-hour debate about whether plasma dust counted as natural pollution or hostile decoration. Eli nearly fell asleep standing up. Then the lights flickered. Only once. Most species did not notice. Humans did. Every human guard in the chamber shifted at the same time. Eli's eyes opened fully. Mara saw it and stopped smiling. A second later, the council's main doors sealed with a heavy magnetic boom. The floating lights turned red. An automated voice filled the chamber. Security breach detected. Unknown vessels exiting void space near Vera Prime. The chamber exploded into noise. Delegates shouted. Translators overlapped. Personal shields activated like bubbles of blue glass. High Speaker Other, leader of the council, rose from his golden platform. He was a tall, graceful creature with silver skin, for arms, and the permanent expression of someone who believed panic was for lower life forms. Silence, he commanded. The chamber obeyed. A hologram appeared above the center floor. Vera Prime spun slowly in blue light. Around it, dark red symbols began appearing. 1 ship. 5 ships. 20. 50. Then hundreds. The room went cold. Mara heard one alien delegate whisper a word her translator struggled to process. Then it found the closest human meaning. Reapers. Eli leaned toward Mara. I'm guessing those are not friendly farmers. High Speaker Other's face tightened. The Dravak Swarm, he said. They have returned. That name moved through the chamber like poison. The Dravak were supposed to be gone. A nightmare from old war records. A species that did not negotiate, did not trade, and did not take prisoners unless prisoners were useful as bait. They attacked in overwhelming numbers. They stripped colonies. They erased defense grids. Then they vanished back into deep void space before retaliation could arrive. For 200 years, they had been silent. Now they were here, at the heart of the Galactic Council. One of the senior admirals, a blue-scaled alien named Varric, opened a war map with shaking claws. Our defense fleet is out of position, he said. Most vessels are attending the border exercises in the Keth system. Mara turned to him. How many ships are defending the planet? Varric hesitated. Eli sighed. That bad? 27, Varric said. The hologram updated. Dravak ships, 412. Council defense ships, 27. Eli stared at the numbers. Then he looked at Mara. Then back at the numbers. Well, he said, that seems rude. No one laughed. Except one small human technician near the back, who tried to hide it with a cough. The High Speaker turned toward the human delegation. Ambassador Vale, he said, your people have 3 patrol ships in orbit, correct? Mara nodded. Yes. Small-range escort vessels. They should withdraw. This battle is beyond your capacity. That sentence landed hard. Beyond your capacity. The alien delegates looked at humanity with pity. Some with fear. Some with quiet dismissal. You are new. You are weak. You are not ready. Mara felt every eye in the chamber. For a moment, she remembered every joke, every insult, every little comment about humans being emotional, fragile, primitive, amusing. Then she looked at Eli. He was watching the war map closely, but there was no fear in his eyes. Only math. Dangerous human math. The kind of math that said, we cannot win normally, so let's do something stupid. Mara knew that look. She whispered, Captain? Eli pointed at the hologram. Their formation is too tight. Varric blinked. What? The Dravak ships. They're packed close together because they expect fear, confusion, and slow command response. That is their standard attack doctrine, Varric said. It has broken stronger fleets than ours. Eli nodded. Sure. Against people who follow rules. High Speaker Other narrowed his eyes. And humans do not? Eli smiled slightly. Speaker, humans invented rules mainly so we could feel clever when breaking them. Mara closed her eyes for half a second. Please do not make that our official species statement. Too late. Half the translators had already recorded it. The planet shook. Far above, the first Dravak weapons struck the orbital shield. The hologram flashed white. A warning screamed through the chamber. Outer shield layer compromised. Now panic returned fully. Council guards rushed to defensive positions. Alien delegates began sending emergency messages to their homeworlds. Some prayed. Some calculated survival odds. One insectoid minister began molting from stress, which Eli decided was not the right moment to comment on. Mara opened a direct channel to the human patrol ships. This is Ambassador Vale. Status. A young voice answered through static. Ambassador, this is Lieutenant Chen aboard the HSS Little Problem. We are seeing a very large number of hostile contacts. Eli's eyebrow lifted. Little Problem? Mara whispered. The crew renamed it. Chen continued. Our sister ships HSS Bad Idea and HSS Hold My Coffee are in formation. The alien Admiral Varric slowly turned toward Mara. "Those are your warship names?" Mara's face remained professional. "Unofficially." Eli looked proud. "Good names." Another impact hit the shield. The war map showed Dravak landing craft moving forward. Varric spoke quickly. "They will breach orbit in 11 minutes. High Speaker Other's voice lowered. Then the council falls. The chamber fell silent again. This time, it was not political silence. It was the silence of old civilizations realizing their walls were thinner than they believed. Mara looked around the chamber. So many ancient powers. So much knowledge. So much pride. And all of it frozen. Waiting for someone stronger to save them. But humanity had never had that luxury. No ancient protector had guarded Earth. No elder species had stopped their wars, healed their disasters, or carried them gently into the stars. Humans had crawled upward through storms, hunger, fire, mistakes, and impossible odds. They had survived because when the sky fell, they did not ask whether survival was dignified. They grabbed the sky and shoved it back up. Mara opened the channel again. "Lieutenant Chen, connect me to all human ships." "Yes, Ambassador." Eli stepped beside her. Mara spoke clearly. "To all human vessels in orbit, this is Ambassador Vale. The Council believes this battle is beyond our capacity." The pause. Then Chen replied, "That sounds like a dare, ma'am." Eli grinned. Mara allowed herself one small smile. "It does, doesn't it?" The 3 tiny human patrol ships moved on the hologram. Against 400 Dravak warships, they looked like sparks facing a storm. Almost silly. Almost nothing. But then the sparks accelerated. Not away from the enemy. Toward them. Varric stared in disbelief. "What are they doing?" Eli folded his arms. "Human diplomacy." High Speaker Other looked horrified. "That is not diplomacy." Eli nodded. "Yeah. We are still learning." The Dravak fleet pushed closer, confident and hungry. The Council watched. The galaxy watched. And for the first time that day, the old powers stopped laughing at humanity. Because the humans were not running. They were charging. And somewhere aboard a tiny ship named Little Problem, Lieutenant Chen opened a fleet-wide channel and said the most human thing possible before facing certain death. "Alright, everyone. Let's make this somebody else's worst day." The 3 human patrol ships accelerated so hard their engines screamed like angry metal animals. Inside the council chamber, alien commanders stared at the tactical display with growing confusion. The HSS Little Problem flew directly toward the center of the Dravak formation. The HSS Bad Idea split left. The HSS Hold My Coffee curved right. 3 tiny ships against a living wall of war vessels. Admiral Varric looked physically uncomfortable. "Why are they separating?" he demanded. Eli answered calmly. "Because staying together would make sense. That is exactly what fleets are supposed to do." "Correct," Eli said. "Which is why the enemy expects it." Varric blinked several times, as if trying to understand whether humans were brave or simply damaged. Honestly, most humans were still debating that too. On the main hologram, the Dravak fleet adjusted formation. Their outer ships shifted to intercept the approaching patrol craft. Mara noticed something immediately. "They're slowing." Eli nodded. "Yep." "They think the human ships are surrendering?" asked Other. "No," Eli replied. "They think we're insane." A long silence followed. Then Varric quietly muttered, "That is somehow worse." Aboard the HSS Little Problem, Lieutenant Ava Chen sat strapped into the pilot's seat while warning alarms screamed around her. The ship shook violently as weapons powered up across the Dravak line. Behind her, Engineer Malik Torres was upside down inside an open maintenance panel. "How bad is it?" Chen asked. Malik's voice echoed from inside the wall. "Good news." "There's good news." "No. Malik. The engine might not explode immediately." Chen sighed. "That is the kind of confidence I really hate before battle." Across the bridge, Weapons Officer Dana Pike shoved a protein bar into her mouth while targeting systems flashed red. "We have approximately 400 enemy ships," Dana said while chewing. I would just like the official record to show this is statistically upsetting. Chin smirked. Noted. The communications officer raised a hand. Lieutenant? Yes. One of the alien fleets is hailing us. Chin exchanged a look with Dana. Already? We haven't even done anything stupid yet. Maybe they want directions, Malik called from the wall. The channel opened. A massive armored creature appeared on screen. Black scales. Heavy jaw. Cold yellow eyes. Dravak. The alien commander stared at the humans with visible confusion. You approach alone, it growled. Chin leaned back casually. Technically we brought friends. You are outnumbered. Dana whispered. He can count. That's unfortunate. The Dravak commander continued. Surrender your vessels. Your deaths will be efficient. Chin glanced toward the tactical screen. Then she smiled. Nah. The Dravak paused. It genuinely seemed unsure how to respond to that. Most species begged. Most species negotiated. Humans apparently said, nah, to death itself. Behind Chin, Malik suddenly yelled, do not touch that. A loud metallic bang echoed through the ship. The Dravak commander narrowed its eyes. Your vessel appears damaged. Chin nodded honestly. Oh yeah. Very. Then why continue? Chin shrugged. Honestly? We're curious. The channel closed. Back in the council chamber, several alien delegates looked horrified. Your officer mocked them, one gasped. Eli crossed his arms proudly. She exercised traditional human military doctrine. Mara looked at him. Mocking terrifying enemies is a doctrine? Absolutely. Sometimes it's the only thing holding the ship together. The Dravak fleet opened fire. Space erupted into crimson light. The human ships scattered instantly. Not in orderly patterns. Not in predictable military vectors. They moved like chaos itself. Little problems spun sideways between plasma volleys. Bad idea rolled under a missile spread so closely that one alien observer actually screamed. Hold my coffee accelerated directly through a collapsing debris field that every sane pilot avoided. Varric stared at the tactical feed in horror. Their maneuvers are impossible. Eli smiled faintly. No. Just unhealthy. The human ships were not stronger. They were not faster. But the Dravak targeting systems struggled badly. Because every military database in the galaxy assumed combat pilots wanted to stay alive. Humans complicated that assumption. Inside Hold My Coffee, pilot Gracie Ibanez laughed loudly as warning alarms flashed around her. Okay. Little warm on the left side. Her co-pilot looked up from sensors. Left engine is on fire. Grace nodded. I know. It was making a weird sound anyway. You cannot solve every problem with aggression. Grace looked offended. First of all, yes I can. The ship shot through two larger enemy cruisers while launching signal decoys everywhere. Behind them, 3 Dravak ships crashed into each other trying to track the impossible flight path. In the council chamber, the tactical officers stared in disbelief. One enemy cruiser disabled. Then another voice. Second cruiser collision confirmed. Another pause. Third vessel damaged by friendly fire. Mara slowly looked toward Eli. Are we winning? Eli considered it carefully. I think technically we are confusing them to death. The Dravak commander did not enjoy confusion. Its fleet had crushed civilizations older than humanity. Battles normally followed clean patterns. Retreat. Destruction. Instead, the humans were acting like predators who had escaped from a locked medical facility. Little problems suddenly accelerated straight toward the largest Dravak cruiser. Admiral Varric nearly shouted. What are they doing now? Eli leaned closer to the hologram. Oh, this should be good. Inside Little Problem, Chen grinned wildly. Malik, tell me you fixed it. From the engineering bay came a loud explosion. Then coughing. Then Malik's voice. Define fixed. Will it work? Probably. Good enough. Dana looked nervous now. That cruiser has enough firepower to vaporize us. Chen nodded. Yep. So what's the plan? Chen smiled. We annoy it personally. Little Problem charged forward directly at the massive cruiser. The Dravak vessel fired heavy plasma cannons. Chen pulled the ship into a violent spiral. Every alarm on board activated at once. The artificial gravity failed briefly. Dana slammed into the ceiling. Malik screamed something in Spanish from engineering. Then Little Problem vanished beneath the cruiser's shield arc. Varric's eyes widened. They are inside the minimum firing zone. Eli pointed. Exactly. The giant cruiser could not target anything directly beneath its armored core. Human pilots had noticed that weakness in under 3 minutes. Because humans spent most of their history looking for ways to hit things larger than themselves. Usually while yelling. Little Problem flew across the cruiser's hull at terrifying speed. Dana blinked at the targeting screen. Lieutenant? What? I think I found their reactor vents. Chen grinned. Of course you did. No, I mean accidentally. Best kind of discovery. Back in the council chamber, High Speaker Others stepped closer to the hologram. Can their weapons penetrate the cruiser's armor? Eli smiled slowly. No. The speaker relaxed slightly. Then Eli continued. But our engineers are very emotional people. Mara already knew where this was going. Oh no. On board Little Problem, Malik burst onto the bridge covered in smoke. I made the thing. Chen pointed without looking away from the battle. Excellent. Load the thing. Varric looked concerned. What thing? Eli answered proudly. The emergency engine core destabilizer. The chamber went silent. Others stared. That sounds illegal. Mara sighed deeply. It probably is. The human ship launched a small metal cylinder directly into the cruiser's exposed vent systems. For 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then the Dravak cruiser lit up from the inside. Blue energy burst through its armored spine. The entire vessel folded apart in a violent chain reaction. Shockwaves tore through nearby enemy ships. The council chamber exploded with noise. Alien delegates shouted over one another. Admirals stared in disbelief. One old minister fainted completely. Varric looked at Eli like he had just discovered humans were secretly mythical creatures. A patrol ship destroyed a war cruiser. Eli shrugged. Look, if you give humans access to engines long enough, eventually we weaponize physics. On the battlefield, the Dravak formation finally broke. Not because of damage. Because of uncertainty. The humans had introduced something ancient militaries feared more than superior weapons. Unpredictability. The Dravak ships spread wider now, trying to contain the tiny patrol craft. And that was exactly what humanity wanted. Because the moment the enemy formation loosened, the Council Defense Fleet arrived. 27 ships dropped from hyperspace directly behind the Dravak line. Admiral Varric inhaled sharply. They delayed the enemy long enough. Eli nodded. Turns out crazy is a very effective stalling tactic. The battle changed instantly. Council warships opened fire across the fractured Dravak formation. Explosions bloomed across orbit. For the first time since the attack began, the invaders lost momentum. But Mara noticed something worrying. The human ships were slowing. Too much. She opened a direct channel. Lieutenant Chen, report. Static answered first. Then Chen's tired voice. Well, the good news? Mara frowned. Why do humans always say that before disaster? Because it makes the disaster feel organized. Eli snorted. Chen continued, bad idea, lost shields. Hold my coffee has engine damage. And Little Problem is currently being held together by confidence. From somewhere behind her, Malik yelled, and tape. Chen nodded. And tape. Another explosion shook the channel. Then Dana's voice cut in. A guys? Bigger problem. The tactical feed zoomed outward. Beyond the battlefield, something massive emerged from void space. The council chamber fell silent again. A Dravak command ship. It dwarfed everything around it. Dark armor covered its surface like moving scars. Weapons arrays unfolded slowly across its spine. Entire destroyers looked tiny beside it. Varric whispered one word. Impossible. Other's expression darkened. The Hive Carrier. Eli looked at the hologram carefully. Then he sighed. That's concerningly large. The Hive Carrier moved through space like a mountain that had decided to become a nightmare. Its shadow swallowed entire sections of the battlefield. Council ships immediately pulled back. Formation lines broke apart as alarms screamed across every tactical channel in orbit. The Dravak fleet rallied around the giant vessel instantly. Confidence returned to them like fire catching dry grass. Admiral Varric's hands shook as he stared at the hologram. That ship destroyed the Karth Dominion fleet during the First Swarm War. Mara looked at the tactical numbers appearing beside it. Length, 21 kilometers. Armor density, absurd. Weapon output, classified. Estimated casualties if it reached planetary orbit, everyone. Eli squinted at the data. I officially miss when our biggest problem was the insulting chair. Nobody laughed this time. Even Eli looked serious now. High Speaker Other turned toward the council commanders. Options? Silence. One admiral suggested planetary evacuation. Another proposed surrender negotiations. A third simply stared at the floor like his soul had already left his body. Then Chen's voice crackled through the comms again. So, anyone got a terrible idea? Mara closed her eyes briefly. Lieutenant, please tell me you are not volunteering for suicide. No, ma'am, Chen replied. I'm volunteering for aggressive inconvenience. Eli smiled immediately. That's the spirit. The tactical hologram shifted as the Hive Carrier launched its first wave of attack drones. Thousands. The black swarm poured into orbit like ink spreading through water. Council defense ships opened fire, but there were too many targets. Explosions lit the darkness everywhere. And in the middle of it all, the 3 battered human patrol ships kept moving. Bad Idea spun sideways through a drone cloud while firing every weapon it had. Hold My Coffee vented smoke from one engine while Grace Ibanez yelled at the ship like it was a stubborn dog. And Little Problem flew directly toward the Hive Carrier again. Varric stared in disbelief. They cannot seriously be attacking that thing. Eli tilted his head. Honestly? If humans see something big and dangerous, our survival instincts become deeply optional. Inside Little Problem, every warning light on the bridge was red now. Dana Pike looked at the tactical display and frowned. I just want everyone here to know this is the worst plan we've ever had. Malik looked up from engineering controls. Worse than the Moonbike incident? Dana paused. Okay, second worst. Chen kept her eyes forward. Relax. We're just distracting it. Dana blinked. That sentence would be comforting if we were not distracting a space apocalypse. Outside the ship, the Hive Carrier slowly rotated. Massive weapon arrays tracked the tiny human vessel. Chen saw it immediately. Oh, that feels personal. The carrier fired. A beam of crimson energy tore across space. Chen slammed the controls sideways. Little Problem dropped violently beneath the blast. The shockwave alone spun the ship 3 full rotations. Malik bounced off a wall. Dana screamed. Chen grinned like someone whose common sense had quietly resigned. Still alive. Malik groaned from the floor. Debatable. Back in the council chamber, alien delegates watched in frozen silence. Human ships should not have survived this long. Not against the Dravak. Not against a Hive Carrier. Yet somehow the tiny deathworlders kept improvising themselves out of extinction. High Speaker Other spoke quietly. They do not fear death. Mara shook her head. No. Humans fear death very much. Then why continue? Mara watched the battlefield carefully before answering. Because humans also hate losing. On the tactical display, council fleets were collapsing under drone pressure. The Dravak attack pattern was changing now. Focused. Organized. The Hive Carrier was coordinating the battlefield itself. Eli noticed it too. That thing's running command and control. Varric nodded grimly. Destroying it would disrupt the entire swarm. A long silence followed. Then Eli asked the question everyone feared. How impossible is that? Varric answered immediately. Completely. Eli sighed. Humans really attract impossible situations. Mara crossed her arms. You say that like we don't cause half of them. Fair point. Aboard hold my coffee. Grace Ibanez wiped blood from her forehead while wrestling with failing controls. Her co-pilot stared at incoming scans. We're losing engine output. Grace nodded calmly. Yep. We may die. Also yep. You seem weirdly okay with this. Grace shrugged. I once survived a 6-hour flight beside a man who explained cryptocurrency the entire time. After that, fear stopped working properly. The co-pilot stared at her. Human psychology is terrifying. Thank you. Suddenly the tactical screen flashed. A priority transmission from Little Problem. Chen appeared on screen. Okay, I think we found the carrier's weak spot. Eli immediately leaned closer. Please tell me it's not another reactor vent. Chen smiled. Oh, it's much stupider than that. The hologram updated. Near the center underside of the Hive Carrier sat a massive gravitational stabilizer array. It controlled the giant vessel's balance during void space transitions. Varric frowned. That system is heavily armored. Sure, Chen replied. On the outside. Mara narrowed her eyes. You found internal access routes. Dana's voice came through proudly. The ventilation schematics were weirdly terrible. Othar looked horrified. You studied enemy ventilation systems during battle? Dana answered honestly. I was bored for like 12 seconds. Eli covered his face, laughing quietly. The plan formed quickly. Too quickly. Which usually meant humans were involved. The carrier stabilizer array sat behind layers of defense fields too strong for direct assault. But if a ship entered the lower maintenance trench beneath the hull, there was a narrow route straight to the core systems. A route designed for repair drones. Not warships. Definitely not human warships. Varric stared at the projected path. That trench is less than 30 meters wide. Chen nodded. Good thing Little Problem is 28. Mara immediately objected. No. Chen blinked. No. You are not flying a damaged patrol craft through a trench inside a Hive Carrier during active combat. Chen thought about it. Counterpoint. There is no counterpoint. Respectful, Nim, there kinda is. Eli tried not to smile. Mara noticed immediately. Do not encourage her. I'm not. You're doing the face. What face? This horrible idea might work face. Eli looked genuinely offended. I have several horrible idea faces. Be specific. Before Mara could answer, alarms erupted again. The Hive Carrier fired another planetary bombardment volley. This time the orbital shield cracked visibly. Entire sections flickered out. Vera Prime was running out of time. Othar looked toward Mara slowly. If the stabilizer array is destroyed, Varric answered quietly, the carrier will lose gravitational balance. And it may tear itself apart during maneuver correction. Silence filled the chamber. A tiny chance. Insane. Risky. Very human. Mara opened the channel again. Lieutenant Chen. Yes, ma'am? If you die doing this, I will personally resurrect you just to yell at you. Chen smiled softly. That's fair. Then the channel cut. Little Problem accelerated. The tiny patrol craft dove straight toward the Hive Carrier as explosions lit space around it. Council fleets shifted formation immediately, providing cover fire. For the first time in modern galactic history, ancient alien warships were protecting humans instead of the other way around. The trench entrance appeared ahead. Tiny compared to the massive carrier. Impossible compared to sane piloting standards. Dana looked nervous now. Lieutenant. Chen cracked her knuckles. Yep. I would like to officially apologize for every time I mocked your flying. Malik grabbed onto a support rail tightly. I would also like to apologize for stealing your noodles last week. Chen grinned. Apologies accepted. Little Problem entered the trench. The world became metal, sparks, and screaming alarms. The ship flew between rotating machinery with barely meters to spare. Gun turrets unfolded around them instantly. Dana fired wildly. Explosions bounced through the narrow trench behind them. Chen twisted the controls hard left. The ship nearly clipped the wall. Malik screamed. Dana screamed louder. Chen laughed. And deep in the council chamber, every alien watching realized something terrifying. Humans smiled during madness. The trench curved downward sharply. Ahead, the stabilizer core glowed blue beneath layers of armored framework. Dana's eyes widened. There it is. Chen exhaled slowly. Malik. Yeah. Tell me you built another illegal thing. Malik smiled proudly. Oh, I built a very illegal thing. He lifted a metal device onto the bridge floor. It hummed violently. Even Dana looked nervous. What exactly is that? Malik thought carefully. A physics disagreement. Outside, enemy drones flooded into the trench behind them. Weapons fire lit the corridor red. Chen looked ahead at the stabilizer core. Then behind at the incoming swarm. Then at Malik's device. Finally she smiled the most dangerous smile yet. All right, she said softly. Let's do something incredibly irresponsible. Little Problem shot deeper into the trench while enemy drones screamed after them like metal hornets. The entire ship rattled violently. Panels sparked. One ceiling light exploded for emotional support. Dana Pike fired the rear cannons non-stop while muttering every curse she knew in 3 languages and one regrettable relationship. We have drones closing fast. Chen kept both hands locked on the controls. How fast? Very. That is not a number. It's the panic kind of fast. Malik dragged the humming device toward the rear loading hatch. The machine vibrated angrily in his hands. Tiny arcs of blue electricity snapped around it. Dana glanced back once and immediately regretted it. That thing looks unsafe. Malik looked offended. Unsafe? Dana, this thing violates at least 17 laws of reality. Wonderful. Back in the council chamber, the hologram zoomed through the Hive Carrier trench alongside the human ship. Alien delegates watched in horrified fascination. High Speaker Other finally whispered the question everyone was thinking. How are they still alive? Eli folded his arms. Momentum. Caffeine. Emotional instability. Mara sighed. The scary part is he might actually be correct. On screen, Little Problem twisted sideways between rotating defense structures. One turret barely missed the ship before slamming into another turret behind it. The resulting explosion wiped out half the pursuing drones. Admiral Varric stared at the feed. They are turning the carrier's own defenses against itself. Eli nodded. Humans learned that trick from arguing on the internet. Nobody understood that sentence. Probably for the best. Inside the trench, warning alarms became one long continuous scream. Dana checked power levels. We are running out of literally everything. Perfect, Chen replied. Why is that perfect? Because if we survive this, I really want maintenance crews to cry. Malik suddenly pointed ahead. Core chamber. The trench opened into a massive circular space deep inside the Hive Carrier. At the center floated the gravitational stabilizer. It pulsed like a miniature blue sun. Energy waves rolled through the chamber walls. Even the Dravak architecture looked unstable around it. Dana's eyes widened. That thing is huge. Malik nodded slowly. And very explode-able. Chen pulled the ship behind a massive support pillar as enemy drones flooded into the chamber behind them. Weapons fire lit the darkness immediately. Little Problem shook under repeated impacts. Warning messages covered every screen. Hull damage critical. Engine failure imminent. Life support unstable. Coffee machine offline. Dana gasped dramatically. Okay, now it's serious. Even Chen looked concerned at that one. Back in orbit, Council fleets struggled to hold formation. The Dravak Swarm was pushing harder now. The Hive Carrier's coordination systems still controlled the battlefield despite the internal chaos. Varric looked toward Mara urgently. They are running out of time. Mara already knew. On the tactical display, Little Problem's signal flickered constantly. The ship was dying. But it was still moving. Still fighting. Still refusing to quit. Other watched the humans carefully. Your species does not surrender easily. Eli answered quietly this time. We learned early that nobody was coming to save us. That line stayed in the chamber longer than anyone expected. Because suddenly the ancient council species understood something important. Humanity had not grown strong in comfort. Humanity had grown strong because Earth had always been difficult. Storms, predators, disasters, failure, again and again and again. And every time humans survived, they became slightly harder to break. Inside the core chamber, Chen studied the stabilizer carefully. Malik. Yep. How illegal is your device exactly? Malik thought for a second. Do you want the engineering answer or the prison answer? The engineering answer. Malik smiled nervously. If we overload the stabilizer with this thing, the carrier's gravity balance will collapse. Dana nodded slowly. That sounds good. Malik lifted a finger. Small issue. There's always a small issue. The resulting energy feedback might create a localized gravitational rupture. Chen blinked. Define localized. Malik blinked back. Optimistically? Dana stared at him. You built a bomb that may accidentally bully physics itself. Malik looked proud. Yes. Enemy drones poured into the chamber. Dana opened fire again. Explosions echoed everywhere. One drone smashed into the hull hard enough to throw everyone sideways. Chen hit her shoulder against the controls. Okay, she hissed. New plan. We plant the device manually. Dana stared at her. Manually? Well, the launcher exploded earlier. The launcher exploded because Malik plugged it into the snack heater. Malik pointed defensively. I needed more power. You nearly turned chips into antimatter. For science. Back in the council chamber, several alien delegates were openly panicking now. One minister looked physically ill. These humans are insane. Eli shrugged. A little. Mara corrected him immediately. A lot. On the battlefield outside, Hold My Coffee and Bad Idea suddenly accelerated toward the Hive Carrier. Varric frowned. What are the other human ships doing? Eli smiled slowly. Creating a distraction. The two patrol ships charged directly into the middle of the Dravak Swarm. Grace Ibanez's voice blasted across open comms. Hey, ugly space bugs. Hundreds of enemy ships immediately redirected fire toward them. Grace grinned wildly. Oh good. They noticed. Her co-pilot looked terrified. This is a terrible idea. Grace nodded. Absolutely. Bad Idea rolled upside down through incoming fire while launching every remaining missile it had. Its captain laughed over comms. If we survive this, drinks are on Chin. A massive explosion rocked the ship. Then a voice yelled. Okay, maybe expensive drinks. The Dravak formation broke again, trying to intercept the reckless human ships. Council fleets immediately exploited the opening. For the first time, the swarm was losing ground. And the Dravak commander aboard the Hive Carrier was furious. Inside the carrier itself, emergency systems activated throughout the core chamber. Heavy blast doors began closing around the stabilizer. Chen saw them immediately. Oh no! Dana's eyes widened. If those doors seal, we lose access. Malik looked toward the unstable device. Then we need to move now. Chen made the decision instantly. She grabbed the device. Dana pointed at her in horror. No. Absolutely not. That thing is humming in a threatening way. Chen grinned. Dana. What? If I die, delete my search history. That is your final concern? It's very embarrassing. Before Dana could answer, Chen sprinted from the bridge hatch into the core chamber maintenance platforms. Enemy drones immediately targeted her. Dana opened fire furiously from the ship. Go, go, go! Malik leaned halfway out the hatch holding a scanner. The stabilizer conduit is 50 meters ahead. Chen ran across narrow metal walkways suspended over glowing energy pits. Explosions thundered behind her. The giant stabilizer pulsed brighter with every second. Back in the council chamber, the hologram followed her movement. The room had become completely silent now. Not because they expected humanity to fail, but because they suddenly believed humans might actually succeed. And that was somehow more frightening. Mara watched Chen sprint through fire and collapsing machinery. Then she quietly whispered, "Come on." Eli glanced sideways. Was that concern? Shut up. Inside the chamber, Chen finally reached the central conduit. The stabilizer towered above her like a mechanical star. Energy waves shook the platform violently. Malik's voice crackled through her comm unit. You need to attach the device directly to the conduit ring. Chen looked upward. The conduit ring sat 20 feet above the platform, protected by rotating energy shields. Chen stared at it, then looked down at the unstable device. Then back up. Dana's voice came through the comm. You're making the face. Chen frowned. What face? The human face. That explains nothing. The face humans make right before history records something very stupid. Chen smiled slowly. Oh, that face. Behind her, enemy drones closed rapidly. Weapons charging. No more time. Chen took a deep breath. Then she did something every alien in the council chamber would remember forever. She picked up the unstable gravity device, ran toward the edge of the platform, and jumped straight into open space above the stabilizer core. The chamber erupted into shocked shouting. Even Eli sat up straight. Chen flew through the rotating energy field with inches to spare. The device screamed in her hands. Below her, blue gravity storms churned violently. Above her, the conduit ring rotated slowly. For one impossible second, humanity itself seemed suspended between brilliance and complete disaster. Then Chen slammed the device onto the conduit ring. It locked into place. The entire stabilizer changed color instantly. Blue became white. White became violent. Malik's voice exploded through comms. Oh, that is definitely too much power. The Hive Carrier shook. Across the battlefield, the giant vessel suddenly tilted sideways. Dravak formations broke apart in confusion. Council fleets stopped firing for half a second in shock. And deep inside the carrier, Lieutenant Avachan looked up at the rapidly overloading stabilizer and quietly said, "Huh." Then every alarm in existence activated at once. The Hive Carrier screamed. Not with sound. With gravity. Space itself twisted around the giant vessel as the stabilizer overloaded beyond containment limits. Blue-white energy burst through the carrier's armored spine in violent waves. Across orbit, ships spun out of formation. Council cruisers lost targeting locks. Dravak drones smashed into each other like insects inside a storm. And right in the middle of the chaos, Lieutenant Avachan was still falling. Chen! Dana screamed over comms. Chen slammed into a lower maintenance platform hard enough to crack the metal beneath her. For 3 full seconds she lay there staring upward. Then she groaned. Good news. Dana sounded furious. If you say you're alive, I swear. I'm alive. Malik shouted through the comms. How? Chen slowly sat up. Honestly? I think gravity got confused. That was not entirely wrong. The overloaded stabilizer had begun distorting local physics inside the carrier. Loose debris floated sideways. Fire curved in impossible directions. One unlucky drone briefly folded into the shape of what Dana described later as an angry spoon. Back in the council chamber, chaos erupted among the alien commanders. The carrier is destabilizing. Enemy formations collapsing. Energy rupture spreading across the lower hull. Admiral Varric turned toward Mara in disbelief. They actually did it. Eli corrected him immediately. No. They started doing it. Right on cue, the tactical hologram flashed bright red. Warning, core instability escalating. Projected rupture event, 90 seconds. Others stared at the display. What happens in 90 seconds? Varric answered quietly. The carrier explodes. A long pause. Then Eli asked the important question. How big an explosion? Nobody answered immediately. That was a bad sign. Finally Varric looked at him carefully. The scientific term is... He swallowed. Extremely. Eli nodded once. Ah. Mara immediately opened comms. Lieutenant Chen, you have to evacuate now. Inside the carrier, Chen pushed herself back to her feet while alarms screamed around her. The entire chamber shook violently. Energy arcs blasted through the walls. Above her, the stabilizer was no longer glowing. It was melting reality. Chin limped toward the ship. "Way ahead of you, ma'am." Dana's voice cracked through the comms. "Actually no, you are very behind us right now." The blast doors around the chamber suddenly began. Ceiling shut. Massive metal barriers dropped from the ceiling. Chin froze. "Oh come on." One door slammed down between her and Little Problem. Dana stared at the sealed barrier in horror. "No, no, no, no." Malik grabbed emergency controls. "I'm trying to override it." The system answered immediately. "Access denied." Dana hit the console repeatedly. "Open the stupid door." The carrier answered by shaking violently again. Somewhere nearby, something exploded with emotional commitment. Back in the council chamber, Mara stepped closer to the hologram. "Chin." The young lieutenant stayed quiet for a second. Then finally, "Yeah." Mara's voice softened slightly. "Report." Chen looked around the collapsing chamber. The exits were sealed. The stabilizer was reaching catastrophic overload. Enemy drones still crawled through the wreckage toward her position. And her ship sat trapped on the other side of a blast door thick enough to survive orbital bombardment. Chen exhaled slowly. "Well." Dana interrupted immediately. "Nope. I know that tone." "Absolutely not." Chen smiled faintly despite the chaos. "Dana." "No. Dana." "No." Malik quietly muttered. "She's doing the sacrifice speech voice." Dana pointed angrily. "You shut up." The ship shook again. Outside, the Hive Carrier was dying fast now. Entire sections of its hull collapsed inward as gravity storms ripped through internal systems. Dravak ships tried to retreat, but many were already trapped in the distortion field surrounding the carrier. Council fleets pulled back at maximum speed. Othar watched the battlefield in stunned silence. One tiny human patrol ship had crippled the most feared war vessel in modern galactic history. Not with superior weapons. Not with advanced technology. But with recklessness, improvisation, and deeply questionable engineering ethics. Eli folded his arms proudly. Human problem solving. Varric stared at him. "You weaponized maintenance access." "Correct. That should not be possible." Eli shrugged. "And yet." Inside the carrier, Chen reached the sealed blast door and slammed her fist against it. "Any progress?" Malik looked miserable. "The locking system is fused into the carrier's emergency protocols." Dana looked up sharply. "What if we blow the door?" Malik blinked. "With what?" "Harsh language." Dana slowly smiled. Then she looked toward the damaged missile rack. "Oh no," Malik whispered. Chin immediately caught on too. "Oh yes." Back in orbit, Hold My Coffee and Bad Idea continued fighting retreat maneuvers around the collapsing battlefield. Grace Ibanez's ship spun wildly past a burning Dravak cruiser. Her co-pilot stared at incoming readings. "The carrier's rupture field is expanding." Grace nodded. "Yep. If we don't leave now, we die." Grace pointed toward the carrier. "Our friends are still in there." The co-pilot stared at her for a long second. Then sighed deeply. "Human friendship is horrifying." "Thank you." The two patrol ships turned back toward the collapsing Hive Carrier. In the council chamber, several alien admirals looked genuinely shocked. "They're going back?" Eli smiled slightly. "Humans are very stubborn about abandoning people." Mara crossed her arms tighter but said nothing. Inside Little Problem, Dana and Malik dragged the last remaining missile launcher toward the blast door. The launcher was damaged, smoking, and making a noise Malik described as legally concerning. Dana loaded the final missile manually. Malik looked nervous. "This could kill us." Dana nodded. "Probably." Humans say probably way too casually. Dana grinned. "You'll get used to it." On the other side of the door, Chin stepped back. "You guys ready?" Dana inhaled deeply. "No." "Good enough." The missile fired. The entire corridor disappeared in white fire. The blast door bent inward violently, then jammed halfway open. Smoke flooded the chamber. Dana coughed hard. Malik stared at the burning launcher. It worked. Dana blinked. I don't trust that sentence anymore. Chen squeezed through the opening immediately. The moment she reached the ship, Dana grabbed her into a crushing hug. Do not ever do that again. Chen winced. I think my ribs are inside my lungs now. Good. Malik pointed urgently toward the stabilizer. We need to leave right now. Nobody argued. Little Problem launched from the chamber at full thrust. Behind them, the stabilizer finally collapsed completely. The entire Hive Carrier folded inward. Not exploded. Folded. Like space itself had grabbed the giant vessel and crushed it. A wave of distorted gravity ripped outward across orbit. Dravak ships shattered instantly. Others vanished into spiraling void fractures. Council fleets barely escaped the edge of the rupture zone. And through all of it, one tiny human patrol ship shot out of the collapsing trench like a bullet escaping hell itself. The council chamber erupted. Alien delegates shouted in disbelief. Some cheered. Some simply stared. High Speaker Other watched Little Problem escape the dying carrier by less than a second. Then he quietly asked, "How are humans real?" Eli smiled proudly. We ask ourselves that all the time. The Hive Carrier collapsed completely. A final burst of white light consumed the battlefield. Silence. The remaining Dravak ships immediately broke formation and retreated into void space. For the first time since the attack began, Vera Prime was safe. The war map cleared slowly. Destroyed ships drifted across orbit. Emergency crews scrambled everywhere. And in the middle of the tactical display sat 3 battered human patrol ships held together mostly by optimism. Mara opened a direct channel. This is Ambassador Vale to all human vessels. Chen answered weakly. Please tell me someone recorded that. Eli burst out laughing. Mara closed her eyes briefly. Then, despite everything, she smiled. Yes, Lieutenant. The pause. Then Chen replied. Nice. 3 days later, the Galactic Council still could not stop talking about humans. Unfortunately for humanity, the conversation had split into 2 very different categories. Category 1. The humans saved Vera Prime. Category 2. The humans should absolutely never be left unsupervised again. Ambassador Mara Vale sat inside a recovery chamber while alien medical drones scanned a burn across her arm. The tiny drone beeped. Stress levels elevated. Mara stared at it. Yes. A moon-sized warship tried to erase us. The drone beeped again. Recommendation, herbal tea. Mara blinked slowly. Your civilization survived for 10,000 years because nobody punched your medical machines. The chamber door opened. Captain Eli Rowan entered carrying 2 cups of coffee and the relaxed expression of a man who had somehow become more dangerous after surviving a disaster. You missed the morning briefing, he said. I was enjoying 5 consecutive seconds without explosions. Eli handed her a cup. Bad news. There's more bad news? The galaxy loves us now. Mara groaned immediately. Oh no. That reaction confused most alien species. Humans understood it perfectly, because being famous was dangerous. Especially human famous. The Council networks had replayed footage from the battle non-stop for 72 hours. Lieutenant Chen jumping across the stabilizer core. Grace Ibanez screaming, "Come here you cowards," while flying through enemy fire. Malik Torres accidentally explaining illegal engineering on a live military broadcast. And, of course, Eli's quote had become legendary across the galaxy. Humans invented rules mainly so we could feel clever when breaking them. Someone had already printed it onto shirts. Mara buried her face in her hands. We're becoming a meme species. Eli sipped his coffee proudly. We became a meme species the moment Earth invented the internet. Outside the medical wing, Vera Prime buzzed with activity. Council workers repaired orbital systems. Defense fleets reorganized. News drones floated everywhere looking for human interviews. Most humans responded by hiding. Unfortunately, Lieutenant Ava Chen was terrible at hiding. Mostly because she kept accidentally becoming famous. At that exact moment, Chen sat inside a council security office while 6 alien officials stared at her like she was a natural disaster wearing a uniform. One of them cleared his throat carefully. Lieutenant Chen. Yes. You understand that detonating an unstable gravity device inside a Hive Carrier violates at least 47 interstellar warfare treaties. Chen nodded. Probably. The officials blinked. You say that very casually. Chen shrugged. Look, where I'm from, if something giant and evil attacks your home, people become flexible about paperwork. One alien official rubbed his temples. Another leaned forward slowly. We reviewed the battle recordings. Cool. You smiled during multiple near-death situations. Chen thought about it. Yeah, stress does that sometimes. The officials looked even more disturbed. One quietly whispered, I do not understand humans. Neither did humanity. That was part of the problem. Elsewhere aboard the station, Grace Ibanez and the crew of Hold My Coffee had discovered alien snacks. This had become a diplomatic incident. You cannot just eat unknown objects. One horrified alien shouted. Grace pointed at the glowing purple food cube. If the galaxy didn't want humans eating weird things, it should not have made weird things. Her co-pilot sighed. She also tried to pet a military animal earlier. It looked emotionally available. It had 6 blades. Grace nodded. Still counts. Meanwhile, Malik Torres had accidentally gathered a crowd of fascinated alien engineers around Little Problem. The tiny patrol ship looked terrible. Half the hull was burned black. One engine had melted slightly sideways. And somebody had written, this side mostly up, near the cockpit. An alien engineer stared into the exposed maintenance bay. I still do not understand how this vessel survived. Malik smiled proudly. Oh, structurally? It didn't. The engineer froze. What? Malik tapped the wall. This section snapped during the trench run. Another engineer looked horrified. But then how? Tape. Silence. The alien engineers stared at him. Malik lifted a roll of silver duct tape from his pocket like a sacred artifact. One engineer whispered, the deathworlders seal warships with adhesive strips. Malik looked offended. High-quality adhesive strips. By the end of the hour, several alien species had already requested trade agreements for human duct tape. Humanity considered this one of its proudest achievements. Back inside the council chamber, the emergency summit finally began. This time, when humans entered the room, nobody laughed. The chairs still sucked though. Mara sat carefully while Eli inspected his suspiciously. I don't trust it. The chair. It remembers. High Speaker Other stepped forward as the chamber quieted. For the first time since humanity joined the council, the ancient leader bowed his head slightly toward the human delegation. It was a massive sign of respect. 3 days ago, Other began, the Dravak Swarm returned to destroy this council. The chamber remained silent. We expected fear, collapse, extinction. He looked directly at the humans. Instead, we encountered humanity. Dozens of alien species watched quietly now. Not with amusement, not with dismissal, but with curiosity, respect, and just a tiny amount of fear. Probably the healthy amount. Other continued. Your species entered this chamber as the youngest civilization in the council. The hologram above the room shifted. Battle footage appeared. Tiny human patrol ships charging impossible odds. Now the galaxy asks a different question. Mara narrowed her eyes slightly. That sounded dangerous. Other looked directly at her. What exactly are humans capable of? A long silence followed. Honestly, humanity was still figuring that out too. Mara stood slowly. The chamber focused completely on her. She could feel it now. The difference. Before the battle, the galaxy had looked at humans and seen children. Now they saw something else. Something unpredictable. Mara folded her hands behind her back. Humans are not the strongest species, she said calmly. The hologram shifted again. Scenes of Earth appeared. Storms. Cities. Oceans. Families. Laughter. Fire. We are not the oldest. We are not the most advanced. More images flashed. Human engineers fixing impossible problems. Doctors saving lives during disasters. Astronauts stepping into darkness. Children staring at stars. But humanity survived a difficult world. Her voice softened slightly. A world that taught us something very early. The chamber stayed completely silent now. When things go wrong. Mara smiled faintly. Panic later. Several humans in the room nodded proudly. One alien ambassador looked deeply concerned. Mara continued. We are stubborn, curious, emotional, reckless. Sometimes. Eli quietly whispered. Frequently. Mara ignored him expertly. But humans protect each other. The hologram showed the 3 patrol ships returning together after the battle. Damaged, burning, still flying side by side. And if necessary, Mara said, we protect others too. The chamber remained silent for 2 full seconds. Then the applause began. Not polite applause. Not diplomatic applause. Real applause. The ancient council species stood one by one. Some struck the floor with ceremonial staffs. Others raised claws, wings, or tendrils in respect. Several military commanders saluted the human delegation directly. Eli leaned slightly toward Mara. Oh, this is weird. Very. Do you think they finally like us? Mara thought about the question carefully. Then she glanced toward the tactical footage still replaying above the chamber. Lieutenant Chin diving through exploding gravity storms. Grace Ibanez flying directly at impossible odds while laughing. Malik Torres committing engineering crimes against physics. And humanity charging toward danger instead of away from it. Mara smiled faintly. I think, she said quietly, they're trying to decide if we're heroes. She paused. Then looked toward Eli. Or a galactic safety hazard. Eli considered that seriously. Can't we be both? Before Mara could answer, a security alarm suddenly echoed through the chamber. Every head turned instantly. Other frowned. What now? A nervous council technician rushed forward. Apologies, High Speaker, but there appears to be another human incident. Mara closed her eyes immediately. Eli sighed. Of course there is. The technician swallowed nervously. One of the human engineers attempted to improve the station coffee machines. The pause. Several corridors are currently on fire. The entire chamber slowly turned toward the human delegation. Mar did not even need to ask. Malik. A distant explosion echoed somewhere in the station. Then the emergency lights turned red. Eli took one calm sip of coffee. Yeah, that sounds like Malik.